Mandatory. Listen.
Okay. Oh man, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, look, hey man, listen. I want you to know that we're dedicated to you. I want you to know that we love you. I want you to know that we care about you.
Dedicated.
Because we're literally an hour and 30 minutes working on just the technical issues. Over the last couple of weeks, I'm sure you've noticed that my guy Dan's video has been laggy. It's not been
guys.
up to par. This is also, we had audio troubles last time. So if you've been following us on our journey, hopefully this is the first time that we'll have video and audio.
Hopefully this is the first time you're watching us.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't know, man. Shout out to the people that have been faithful the whole time. But
that's right.
Listen,
I'm sorry.
We're here, man. I just want you to know we love you. And yeah, that's I probably wore this hat and this shirt combo before already in our short history, but we're here, baby.
That's one of the toughest things that people don't think about is if you're on YouTube, you can't have the same hat shirt combo every time.
Not every time, bro.
Not every time.
But see, but what makes it tricky is I did another podcast today with my band Lark, and I also have a shirt. Thank you. I also have a shirt hat combo with that podcast, so I had to switch it up for them. But then also, there's not that's a double. Now you have a double shirt hat combo thing that you got to figure out.
Well, listen, guys, we're gonna get into this episode.
You know who never reused shirts
Who's
and
that?
hats? Elton John.
Elton John, a beautiful,
fantastic
segue into today's album, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy by Elton John.
Brown Captain Fantastic.
We're gonna get into the intro here, and what's something that you knew about Elton John before listening to this album? Did you know anything about it first of all?
I know he played piano.
Okay, that's a win.
I know that he was gay. I knew that, or he is gay. I knew there's two very weird things to know about a person. He plays piano.
Well, those are two. I would say those are two important things to know about Elton John.
Probably.
Honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you thought he played guitar, that would be you're kind of losing right off the bat.
I also know that on Mix 92.9 he has a lot of songs.
Bro, you are a Mix 92.9 guy through and through.
It's like nostalgia, man. Like, it's not that great of a station, but just they play the same songs for the last 20 years. But it's just nostalgia, man. Every time I hear like a candle in the wind, just something in my stomach.
That song, I wish that song were on this album. It was a great song.
Yeah, it's a great song. Yeah, so Elton, like, that's amazing what I knew. It's like he did a lot of really cool songs. He's the piano man. And honestly, one of the reasons I wanted to do...
hold on. Actually, the piano man is Billy Joel.
Oh, dang.
So here are the things I know. Here are the things I know about Elton John. He plays piano, he's gay, and he's the piano man. Oh, 2 out of 3.
He plays piano, he's gay, and he's Billy Joel.
Well, you know what? Yeah, he's the gay Billy Joel. I mean, actually, anyway, we should get off of that. But my dad saw them together in concert at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville, and he said that this was like 10 years ago or something, and he said that the show was hours and hours of just literally top 40 hits between
just
the two
hit
of them.
after hit after hit. When you start looking at Elton John's discography, you're like, good, wow, jeez.
Yeah. So the songs that I know or knew before I listened to this were actually
before you talk about songs, do you know anything? Did you know anything about him?
Oh yeah, I knew. Well, so he plays piano. I knew that he was gay, and that he was he really is like a Billy Joel kind of guy, kind of a piano man, people might say.
Yeah, piano man.
But that's about it. I knew he was in a Pepsi commercial for the Super Bowl a couple years back.
Whoa.
But really, I did know like 8 or 9 of his songs.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of his hits.
Yeah, me too.
But that's the thing is pretty much all the ones I knew were before this album came out. So when he was even younger, which I was kind of surprised.
Me too.
So, all the ones that you guys probably know: Tiny Dancer, Rocket Man, Candle in the Wind, Benny and the Jets.
Oh yeah, baby.
There's one actually that's just called Daniel, so I have to know that one.
Oh, I don't know that one. How does that one go?
Daniel. That's all we can do for the podcast.
For legal
I would
purposes.
Sing more of it.
Yeah, but it sounds so similar that YouTube's algorithm is going to pick it up, and I get you. No.
This was Elton's 9th studio album, released on May 19th, 1975.
Definitely an album. Like after we started choosing it, I was wondering to myself, is this even considered a classic album?
Me too. I thought the same thing because I think his most classic album,
the one before it, right?
Would be the two before it, which is 1973, "Goodbye Yellow Brick Road." And that's the one. That's the one with "Candle in the Wind," Benny and the Jets, "Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting." A lot of great songs. But it was a big, epic kind of. I think that was a double album actually. So then he had Caribou after that in 74, which didn't do it. That was a big one too. Wait, it did well, not as well.
Yeah, but we're talking to it didn't do well for Elton John at the time. Yeah, he was the king of the world.
Yeah, it was only number one for 3 weeks.
Yeah,
not as long. But let's get to the hook. What do you think the hook of this album is?
Yeah, I was having a lot of trouble because, with Songs of the Key of Life, we had a clear story. With what's it called? Rumors. We had a clear story, very juicy, clear story. I feel like there's not really a huge hook with this one. If I had to say one, I would say this though. This was the album that they got to write about themselves.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? This is kind of the culminate. It's almost like they knew the kind of Elton John's classic period or whatever you would want to call it was kind of coming to an end, and they we're gonna encapsulate this story into this concept album, which was Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Car. It's just about their come up basically. It's about them grinding and getting there, and when I think about it, that's just kind of that's kind of what I came to. What do you what do you?
Me too. I basically just wrote down hard work pays off because that's kind of the vibe I was getting. Again, I agree there wasn't as clear of a narrative or something around the album as a whole, but
right. And when you say hard work pays off, I think it's important to say this album was definitely one of those where the label or the powers that be in their professional lives let them do this. You know what I mean? Because there's no single on this album. There's no radio hit. There's no glaring oh, this was the one. You know what I mean? There are songs on there that people know, and we'll talk about those in a second. But it's there. It was very much like a passion project, and even to prove that, Elton still talks about how this is his favorite album. It's his favorite, project of his. And so I think like you said, it pays off, and every now and then you get a chance to just make exactly what you want.
Yeah, and I think what we were saying earlier about
and still get paid a lot of money for it.
Oh yes, a lot of money.
Yeah, anybody can make what they want, but
yeah. Well, yeah, and that goes back to the record contract we talked about with Stevie last time. Right. Money talks for sure. But Honky Chateau in 1972 was a number one record, and then from then until this album, and actually one past it, which was Rock of the Westies, came out later in the same year, 1975. From 72 to 75, every single album was a number one. And and the thing about it is
and he was really young too.
He was really young. I think he
23, 22, 23, around that age.
Yeah, so he's 3 years younger than Stevie Wonder. So he was getting into his late 20s by the time he put this one out. But when when he was putting out Honky Chateau, he would have been like 25, 24.
Jeez. That was 72?
That's the one with Rocket Man. Yep, that was 72.
Okay.
And then Don't Shoot Me, I'm Only the Piano Player, 73. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road was also 73.
Yeah.
Caribou, 74. So they're all reaching number one. But then you get to this one, which was the first ever album.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, let this sink in.
Yeah, say it.
The
this
first
deserves
ever album to debut straight at number one on the pop charts.
Yeah. We talked about this last week, right?
Yeah, it was Stevie. That he was the first American artist for it to happen to. The following year with Songs in the Key of Life. So what that says to me is for an album to debut straight at number one, that says more to me about the albums that come before it. Like,
right.
He had that string of number one albums, and he was already established, and that's how this one, even though it didn't have a bunch of hit singles.
Yeah, he had so much. Cloud is not the best word, but he had so much
cloud.
Maybe it's cloud. Yeah, he's so much of that built up that he. It was just like, it's gonna. It's like if Kendrick drops something right now, it's gonna be number one. If Beyonce drops something right now, it's gonna be number one. It's like,
he had momentum. Maybe that's what you were going for, or
something.
Cloud momentum. Yes.
Right.
So
let's give some like some history, some context.
Yeah, I'm feeling your vibe too. So, Bernie Taupin, we got to get into Bernie Taupin because he is the main songwriter. I'm sorry, lyricist behind Elton John. And
this is interesting, right? It's a little relationship they have.
Really interesting and spanning decades, and like they have always worked together, except for a period of I think a year or two going into like 1980-ish, but that was after they had all those number one albums together. So this is interesting to me. Like they met because they both responded to the same talent advertisement.
Yeah, in the newspaper.
in a magazine, yeah. But I mean, like, the funny thing is neither of them passed the audition that they were responding to the ad for.
Yeah.
But they stayed connected because they like had both talked to the same guy at the label. And Elton John was like, I don't really write lyrics. I need someone who does. He talked to the guy. The guy was like, here's a folder with lyrics in it from.
Yeah, he's like, hey, just leave. Here you go.
And this is so. Speaking of age, this is in 1967. So Bernie was 17, and Elton
said
John
speaking
was 20.
of what?
Speaking of age.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, Bernie. I mean, he was.
Yeah, they were both
not
like,
even.
Yeah, they were both like really, really young.
Yeah,
I actually watched the movie. Did you watch the movie?
Wow, what movie?
There's a movie called Rocket Man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I thought you meant like a movie from that time.
No.
I got you now.
Yeah, no, there's a movie that I think it released last year called Rocket Man.
Yeah, I've heard of
it. Basically the way that they did it in the movie, which I don't know how true this is, but surely it has to be like somewhat true for Elton John to have produced it and approved it. But basically, like the Reg Dwight, which was like the 20-year-old guy that kind of like put it all together, he was like he was acting like he was like the boss. And he, was like auditioned Elton or whatever. And then the real boss comes in and it's like, yo, what are you doing in my office? Like, why are you doing this? Whatever. And then he's like trying to like hurry out because he just got in trouble. And Elton's like, yo, like, can you help me out? And he's like, get this guy. He just gives him a folder. And then they meet up and it ends up, here's an understatement. It ends up working.
Just a little bit. And so Reginald Dwight, as you mentioned, is Elton John. So, yeah. So his birth name is Reginald Dwight. I could see how he might want to change it from that.
Ray Williams was the guy, not Reginald.
Ray Williams. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
So do you know how he got his name?
Yeah, so Reginald Dwight started going by Elton John as an homage to two of his fellow former bandmates,
Yep.
Elton Dean, and Long John Baldry. And he had been in a band with them called Bluesology earlier in the 60s in England. And yeah, so that was interesting to me because I thought maybe he named himself after like family members or like some people of like higher social status or something, but it was just two friends. That's pretty cool.
Well, I remember in the movie, I mean, I'm not going to refer to the movie a lot in this podcast, but he said
go watch this movie.
He got the like you said, he got the name Elton from one of his bandmates, but then the name John he just kind of like came up with on the spot when he was in that meeting. He's like, "What's your name?" He was like, "Elton," and he looked on the wall and there was like that picture of John Baldry.
Okay.
So I don't know if they actually were bandmates. They didn't say that. So
yeah, they were, but that's one of those things that's like, you know, in the movie they want to make it more.
That's not what I'm gonna like refer to it too many more times. But
I'm sure it was good. I heard it was good, but they make everything more dramatic. Oh, you didn't think it was good?
No.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
I didn't think it was that good. Just like how I'm performing on this podcast right now.
I guess we should have an album podcast like this, and we should have a movie podcast
about albums, like a music, what's the word? Music biopic.
Yeah. Oh, I used to think it was biopic, like bionic.
I think it's both.
Is
People
it?
say biopic because remember we had this huge fight in college where we were like, it's biopic. I was like, no, it's biopic.
Oh, really? We had a fight about this?
Or maybe it was me and Kelvin. But it was like a long.
It's probably safe to assume that we had a fight about whatever. I mean, it could have been anything.
Also, fight is like a really overstatement. Like I don't think we've ever had a fight.
Well, yeah, argument is the more correct term.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to get from kind of 1967, Bernie and Elton meet, and they're kind of just starting out. In 1968, they joined. As a team, they joined the British label DJM Records as songwriters.
Yep.
And I thought this was an interesting note that they were just cranking out songs, which is how it would be at those places.
See, because when I think about them, I kind of like their relationship. Kind of reminds me of like how like theater music was written back in the day. Like you have somebody that writes words, and you have somebody that kind of puts music together. You know what I mean? Like Rodgers and Hammerstein, and who else?
Yeah.
Something in Heart. What's the other one?
Heart and Soul.
Yeah, Heart and Soul. That's it. but yeah, like that's kind of it was funny. Like when I thought about that, I was like, oh, all of his songs sound like that. All of his songs sound like somebody wrote them on a page before they even and didn't think anything about music.
Yeah, right. Huh.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, like, because, I think of duos like Lennon, McCartney, Page and Plant, guys that are in the same band together,
right?
Playing instruments and maybe even singing together, and it's all one thing.
Mm-hmm.
But Bernie and Elton are really one of those duos, except Bernie's, and the reason I said he's behind Elton John is because, I mean, there's plenty of people who know Elton John don't know anything about Bernie Taupin, but I
had no idea who Bernie Taupin was before this. I'll be honest.
I mean, it's amazing that he wrote all of those. I mean, like, according to Elton, he just doesn't write lyrics at all, which is interesting to me.
He's just like, I just don't do it, which is weird. I don't know if it's weird, but interesting is the best word.
It's interesting, and what's, I think, critical about the whole story is that they did start as a songwriting team at that label, and they were cranking stuff out, and that kind of solidified their partnership as like how they work together. They had to do it for other people, and so they learned how to just like be super efficient together. And then once it came to Elton John's solo career, I mean, they were churning out records. Like,
they know how to write songs. Like, you knew, like, because there is, like, as much as people, try to make it all about, oh, it's just creative, we just flow, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? The music just comes. It's like, there is a part of it that is craft. There's a part of it that's discipline. There's a part of it like there's techniques, there's principles in songwriting, just like any other type of skill or creative act. You know what I mean? You got to know how to use a paintbrush. Like you can't just paint.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So
so
like the fact that they got like all those reps in, all those practices in, that's what was like the catalyst for this amazing thing. And then when you think about like that, this was the story of this album, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy.
Yeah, it's really all about their earlier days being songwriters for the label and then starting Elton's career. And when you look back on it, I mean, it wasn't really too much time from when they started putting out Elton John music until he got, Your Song was his first kind of hit.
1970.
And it was on his like second album, so.
What a song, man.
What a song. Yeah. That's
it's funny. Man. I didn't even know that.
Go into so much Elton John.
I didn't know
music.
That. I'll admit, I didn't know that song because of Elton. I knew it because of Aloe Black.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Where he's, you can go to everybody. You can go and tell everybody. You can go and tell everybody. I'm the man. I'm the man. I'm the man.
I'm so glad you said that because there's another kind of sample example.
Don't use my 3-on-3
that I have. I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna save it for 3-on-3.
Okay,
and I might even toss it to you because I have a couple other ones.
Okay, maybe it's not the one.
But it's cool. I think it's cool that there's multiple examples of his music being reinvigorated by a later generation,
right?
Of Aloe Black and whoever we'll get to later.
Blankety blank.
Blankety blankety blank.
Or more like blanky blank.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, bro.
We're definitely thinking the same.
The first episode I carried you. You are carrying me right now, bro. I'm so sorry.
we're definitely thinking of the same person. No question.
Yeah. To my knowledge, this is like that's the album you listen to the most. So it's like you were like, oh, that's it.
Yeah. Also in 1968, they're on the record label. They were sharing a flat, as they called it, but basically an apartment, I guess.
Right.
It was Bernie, Elton, and Elton's girlfriend. And this was before he maybe fully realized he was gay, or
Or I think it's like more like he just wasn't like telling people. I think he told Bernie, but that he didn't really share that.
It was way less socially acceptable in 1968.
Yeah. Also, I don't really know how acceptable it was in England,
Right. Could have been even worse.
Or Britain, or wherever he was living.
Yeah.
Bro, my England Britain is bad, bro. Are they the same thing or not?
So I always go England for the place and then British for the adjective. That's just what I go with.
And the UK is like the whole island, including Ireland
and Scotland.
Okay.
Yeah, and I didn't know that until about
Americans
10 minutes ago. No, I'm just kidding. But pretty late into high school or college, I realized.
Yeah, I didn't learn it till college. Americans, bro. We only think our 50 states matter.
Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing, actually.
Yeah, it is. I'm sorry, guys. I'm being transparent.
Literally where we came from, where Americans came from, as a country,
yeah.
They defected from, that gets into a whole other conversation. Really, Americans came from everywhere, but that's for another podcast.
Yeah.
So, in 1968, they're all living together, and I think a lot in part to the fact that Elton had a girlfriend and he was figuring things out. He was miserable. He was just not in a good place in his mind.
Yeah.
And
you know why?
Why is that?
I'm asking you.
Well, that's what I was saying. I think that he was
just the identity crisis thing?
Yeah, he's trying to be straight.
Yeah.
He's trying to have a girlfriend, but that's clearly not, who he is. The song Someone Saved My Life Tonight is about this experience of basically he kind of attempted suicide.
Yeah.
It was, and you may know something about this, but it was essentially he turned the gas on in the kitchen and kind of was planning on doing it that way. But I also read that he opened a window, and was like letting air in. And
I don't really know exactly the full story.
Yeah,
but something along those lines.
I think we could sum it up, since we both don't know the man. I think we could sum it up in saying that he was lost. He was in a bad spot, and he didn't know what to do, and he was at least contemplating suicide. And so actually, the John of Elton John, Long John Baldry, is who convinced him to, hey man, like break off the engagement, because he was engaged to his girlfriend. And that was about to ruin everything. His career probably wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And so he was, and also he was only still 21.
Yeah, he was really young, man.
He's so young. So that's the thing for me. Back to the hook of this, of like hard work pays off, and maybe more generally, like it's gonna be better later. Just if you can wait another year or two, your career's going to get started. You're going to be expressing yourself through your music. And then a few years down the line, you're going to be one of the biggest artists in the world, most successful,
and even, let's take a pause here and just say, like, even if you're not going to become the number one, the biggest rock star in the world, maybe a year from now, you'll be able to see things a whole lot clearer.
Clearly.
Maybe like a year from now, you'll be in like relationships with people that will like help build you up and help like support you in ways that you haven't been supported before. Just like always, like, I've never been suicidal or been in that situation, but I just felt the need to say, like, like hang in there, like hang in there.
Yeah.
If you're like watching this at all, just like hang on and
definitely
and reach out to somebody.
Definitely, I can't agree more. And I think really what we should latch on to about that story is that he had a friend like Long John and a friend like Bernie who lived with him too, to help him out, get him back on his feet, and that ended up leading to great success. But it doesn't have to. It's just about living a better life, So it's crucial that he had friends like Bernie and Long John to help him through that time, get him back on his feet, and we're all thankful that he did, because he ended up making some pretty awesome music,
including this song called "Someone Saved My Life Tonight," which, like we said, there's no single on this album really. There's no song that was like pushed more than other ones, but this was like the song of this album, and like it's funny, like you know what, let's go ahead and like move on to like this actual album, okay? Like this song was the kind of like the shining light of this album. There's a lot of good music on here. There's a lot of great tunes, as somebody might say. There's a lot of great like melodies and lyrics, but this song stood out in a lot of ways, including like I read this Rolling Stone article. Like maybe we should just start naming this podcast Rolling Stone and Wikipedia, because I'm always getting stuff from Rolling Stone and you always get
Wiki Stone,
which was funny. Like I listened to did you read the article, the Rolling Stone article?
I don't think so, no.
It's the one that came out the year of. And literally the whole article is this critic bashing the whole album.
Really?
Like just tearing Bernie and Elton John apart. They're just like, oh, they're so like self self-masturbatory, and like, like it's all about them, and it's like these gaudy, like when they say God, I guess they just meant like these lyrics that don't mean anything. Like there's these big like lofty things that are just empty. You know what I mean? Like they don't really have anything. And I was like, is this like a critique that people had about Elton and Bernie?
Yeah,
they didn't like the language that they were using, because when you definitely read these lyrics and they're definitely not like typical. But I don't think that's a bad thing.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's what makes the music unique. Honestly, is that there, like you were saying earlier, there's some phrases of lyrics that are not conventional in how they, like the rhythm of them.
Like you can definitely tell that the lyricist is not writing music to this. He's writing words. and Elton is like trying to fit it in. Yeah, that's what it feels like, you know. Yeah, and I think it works, but
I think it works, and I don't think it would work with. I don't think Bernie could do it with someone else. I don't think Elton could do it with someone else. That's the amazing thing, is I think they really are a duo in the sense that, you know.
But maybe there is like a bit of science behind it, because now that I think about it, the choruses are still singable. Like they're still top 40 songs for a reason. You know what I mean? Like even like "Someone Saved My Life." Someone saved my life tonight. Little bear,
sugar bear.
Booger bear, little bear.
Let's pause. I'm sorry. Let's pause for just a second. It's my favorite song on the album, but that is my least favorite moment. Yeah, it is.
Booger bear.
Sugar bear.
Is it sugar bear?
It's sugar. It's sugar bear.
What does that mean?
Let me tell you, man. Bernie should have done a second draft or something on that. Just that one name.
That's what I guess that's what the critic was saying, man. Like he was saying like a bunch of these things. But I said that to say that the one good thing he said about this album was how like "Someone Saved My Life Tonight" is the best song that they've written together. Yeah. That's what he said. He was like, this is like their crowning achievement as songwriters. That was like the one good thing. Literal one good thing that he said.
Well, man, I got to say too about the hook of the song, that is the little vocal, you know.
Yeah.
That shows so much restraint that they only do that twice in the whole song. They do it once after the first chorus, once after the second chorus, and they don't even do it at all after the third chorus.
Yeah.
That made me want to listen to it over and over, because it was just like I wasn't getting enough of it.
Right.
And it was like they didn't just throw it at, like nowadays, you know, and understandably, but they'll put out a pop single, and if there's a hook in it, I mean they drill it into your head.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, like we said, like they had like skills. Like they weren't just like putting stuff together. Like you know what I mean? Like they knew what they were doing.
Totally.
And like to balance out how wordy a lot of these choruses and verses are, they would just have like ooh, or you know, just they have like all. If you listen to a lot of his songs, there are just moments where he just uses his voice.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Not saying words.
Right. Yeah. Kind of oohs and ahs. You know.
Yeah. Those are important.
They are really important, and actually, what I kind of got out of the last song on the album, "Curtains," the ending to that song, really like the last 2.5 minutes of that song. I mean, it's over and over. It's the oohs and ahs, and so that to me was like, okay, honestly, the first or second time I listened to the album, I was like, okay, that's why they waited on "Someone Saved My Life Tonight." They didn't overdo the oohs and ahs on that one.
Yeah,
and then once you get to the end, the curtains are coming down, and it's like they let it loose for the end of the album. And I loved that. I was like really digging that as a thematic thing, you know.
One interesting thing is that they wrote this album in order, which I think maybe non-musicians might think that, like people that don't make music or make recordings might think like that's not a big deal, but that literally never happens.
Right.
Like you never sit down and be like, all right, what's going to be track 1? Let's write that. Track 2, let's write that. You know, track 3, which you know, that was like interesting that they wrote it like that, you know. So you said that little thing about like they saved that stuff. Normally I would be like, I don't know, but because they wrote it in order, there's like a good possibility that's what they did.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the other thing that I love about the composition of the music and how it happened is that apparently Elton John composed the music. So again, not the lyrics, but he composed the music for the album during a ship voyage from the UK to New York. I was like, that couldn't be any better, right? A ship voyage.
There were a lot of like.
Was it 1873, 1875?
I read there's another like throwback article about that I read where it was like basically like a day in the life of what's his name? Elton John.
What's the guy's name that we're currently
Elton. Of Reg Dwight's life, and
nice.
No, it was like a day in the life, but it was on that ship, and basically they just talk about how like he was like, I'm trying to stop drinking, and I'm trying to stop this, and try to stop that, and then basically he just ends up doing all the stuff he said he's trying to stop doing. You know what I mean? But this was like he was at the height of his powers as an icon, as a pop artist, and just as a I don't know. And so he was on this boat, and it was crazy to see him because people were like, "Oh, this is Elton John." You know what I'm saying? You know. And so he goes in the room, and in this specific day, he wrote that song "Meal Ticket." Well, he got the words from Bernie, and then he like wrote the music to it in 30 minutes.
Okay.
So it's like, you know, back again, like he like knew what to do. You know what I mean?
Just churning it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, you know, the other, I think, overall thing that I love about this album, and I think this is going to be maybe kind of specific to just me and how I feel, but the simplicity of the recording, who's on it, all of that. So it was produced by a guy named Gus Dudgeon. As we continue our series of producer and engineer names that are just like out of this world, like Gus Dudgeon. I don't know where these names are coming from. Yeah. Anyway, it was produced by Gus Dudgeon, and it was entirely recorded at Caribou Ranch Studio in Nederland, Colorado, which is like basically a ghost town. I mean, it's like 1,000 people at the most, maybe.
Right.
Kind of out in the middle of nowhere. But they recorded it there instead of, you know, and that's the important thing, not in L.A., not in New York, not in London, right? They did it all in Nederland, Colorado.
And I think that Bernie wrote a lot of it on the Caribou Ranch.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And then, like you said, Elton wrote the music on the SS France ocean liner.
France.
And then they said most of the band most of his band took beginning. Sorry, it looks like what they meant to say was they started in July 19th in Southampton, England, and that was like the third place they recorded there.
Oh, okay.
Which is another thing to mention. Which is another thing that we should mention is that this was like the last time that his band like performed together. Maybe you can expound on that.
Yeah, so he had his band of Davey Johnstone on guitar, Dee Murray on bass, and Nigel Olsson on drums.
You sure it's not Johnston?
Pretty sure it's Johnstone, but
I mean, I know it's written Johnstone, but would it be Johnston?
If it's Johnston and it's written Johnstone, then I'm gonna be mad. That E should not be there.
Yeah, I feel you.
I'm acting like I'm a name, like the name police, man. Gus Dudgeon, you know, I'm just going in on these people. But I also really want, I want to mention the percussionist Ray Cooper because he is all over this album. I mean, he's playing Jawbone and I mean any like auxiliary percussion instrument you can think of, he's playing on this album, and he's a big part of the sound. You know,
my favorite song on this album is Captain Fantastic, and then Brown Bear Cowboy, which is the first one, right? And it's kind of like a country vibe, really.
I know, I was surprised.
But once the second verse comes in, I think those the congos come in, and it's just just like that with the backbeat. I usually don't like congas in music, especially in the 70s. It was kind of weird.
Yeah.
But it's really done really well. And so it just feels so good when it's Jump the Cowboy.
I know.
I could listen to that song forever, man.
No, I'm totally with you because like it sounds like Nigel Olsson is playing the groove and the congas. Like that's how together it is, you know.
Right.
Which, by the way, that's probably impossible or near impossible to do.
Yeah.
But that's how together it sounds. And then of course along with D Murray on bass, that rhythm section is just locked in. Now, here's what I'll say though. You know, they were locked in on a lot. They weren't always locked in, I found. And one song that, for that reason, but also just the overall song, there's only one of these songs that I'm kind of getting to like skip level with. I don't know if you can guess which one it is.
Is it like I haven't been looking at the names of it, but is it like 8 or something like that? Like 8 or 9? Like 8? What is it?
It's 4.
Hold on, let me 4.
4. Side 1.
Oh,
my least favorite one.
Really?
Tell me when the whistle blows.
Tell me when the whistle blows. When they go to that minor chord. Tell me when the
Nope, I hate it.
I sound like my brother.
I shouldn't say hate it. I don't hate it, but it sounds to me like, you know, okay, 6th grade band members, open your 6th grade band book, and we're gonna play a rock song. That's what it sounds like to me.
Oh man,
I'm sorry to go in, but
see, I didn't know that your goal with this podcast was to never play on any of these legacy bands ever. I didn't know. If you would have told me that you'd have been dissing. You dissed Fleetwood Mac in the first one. You dissing Elton John.
See, but it's important. I think it's important to not just be like, oh yeah, I love anything and everything. I love 9 of the 10 songs. Isn't that not dissing it?
Oh yeah, sure. I don't think that's the one.
I'm okay to diss that song, man. I will say it to anybody. That song is not my favorite.
I think the one that I didn't like was either, I think it's We All Fall in Love or maybe, no, it's Better Off Dead, maybe.
Better Off Dead.
I think it's We All Fall in Love Sometimes.
Really? Oh.
It's just long, or maybe it's Writing. It's one of like 8 or 9. I can't remember which one it was. But
I could see how it would be Better Off Dead, but I loved Writing and I loved We All Fall in Love Sometimes, but
no,
you know.
Oh, Better Off Dead. Better Off Dead. That sounds like one of those commercials that you would hear. 1-800-822-6.
Honestly, that should be the song for some of these medicines that they do commercials for, and they're like side effects. Side effects include death. It's like better off dead.
Better Off Dead.
Boy, that was dark. Anyway, so. This is the last album.
Right after we just told people to stay alive at suicide prevention, and telling them better.
Right. No, we're telling people not to just take every medication known under the sun because there's a commercial for it.
That's
big pharma. We're getting there. All right.
Yeah.
But this is the last album that was recorded with D Murray and Nigel Olsson, the bass player and drummer, until 1983. So they, took a pretty hefty break. And the reason is because my boy Elton fired them, and I didn't really get into why.
He was a bit of a hothead.
Elton.
He was a bit of a hothead in his earlier days.
That makes sense.
And this is like still his early days. You know what I mean? Like he just kind of did what he wanted to do, and he was the biggest rock star on the planet. Like Also, I think it's important to say that he was so much of an icon that he was a rock star and he played piano.
Yeah.
Serious.
Yeah.
Like if you watch live videos, I'll watch some like live videos of him, and he was like standing like on the insides of his feet and like crouching down and like playing the piano and like, doing all like kicking the stool across the stage, like jumping on the piano, playing the piano with his feet, like I was like, wow, I've been doing it wrong all these years.
Yeah, right.
This is what I should have been doing. Right? Yeah, I just been And Elton's over here getting full on jazzercise.
Yeah, he was a jazzercise. He was a big part of the glam rock kind of scene of the 70s, and his outfits kept getting crazier and crazier, and he was a showman for sure.
I love that type of stuff. I don't get some of the stuff he was wearing, man.
Definitely not.
He was I don't know. There was a lot of stuff going on that was outside of my wheelhouse. I was like, okay, got you.
You just get to a certain point, you really can pull off things that you couldn't have before because you are that guy now. Like he wasn't wearing that when he did Your Song in 1970, right?
Yeah.
Like he had all the #1 albums, and
it's
really
true, man. It's true, man.
You can get away with a lot crazier outfits, and
which I think is a good parallel to how he was living his life, and probably is connected to why he fired the band, which is just like when you become that big and people don't tell you no because you're paying their bills. It's like, I'm gonna come out looking with all feathers on. Yeah.
All feathers. What's the problem with that? I'm a bird now. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a bird. Don't talk to me.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like, would I want to be friends with Elton John? Maybe, like possibly, but it's like I really dig his music, except for the fourth song on this album. But I really dig his music, but like, and that's okay. Like, you're not going to be friends with everybody. Like, I think cool. sometimes there's this thing with celebrity, and this maybe is more of an older idea, but this thing where it's like, oh, like they would really be my friend if I knew them. It's like, that's not necessarily true.
Also,
like, and it's okay. It's okay.
The more and more you're around the musicians, the more you realize that all of us are like just messed up. Like,
oh, totally. Yeah.
It's like, why would you choose to live like this?
Why would you choose to do a podcast about? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Why would you choose to do a podcast that 15 people are going to watch?
Yeah, right. Hey, episode 1 has 42, man. 42.
Yeah, my
views.
bad. I'm going to stop sleeping on us. But it's like, it's like, there's some things that, I mean, it takes a certain type of person to like go through what we go through, and I'm not trying to make it sound like we're some victim or anything like that.
Sure, yeah.
Like no, like there are definitely plenty of examples of people that have it worse in the world, but
totally
in concert with the theme of this album, it's a long like road until you get to like success.
Yeah,
most times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Who knows why he fired that guy? But I have probably a good reason. I mean, I have a reason to think that it's probably his fault.
Yeah. I think so. I think so too. But the cool thing is that they did get back together, and when they did, they recorded "Too Low for Zero" in 1983, and it had the hit "I'm Still Standing" on it, which is another Elton John song that I knew before I listened to this album.
Right.
And actually, the only one of the post-70s era, except for, I mean, we don't even have to get into all this, but he did like the Lion King soundtrack. I mean, man, he is just he's a legend, dude. Honestly, like some of those Lion King songs will bring you to your knees too.
Yeah, just off of that, just off the strength of Lion King, man, you're good. Like you're cemented in
oh,
the
totally.
So listen, overall. I mean, I'm sure we can say a bunch of things, but overall, I really enjoyed this album. I mean, there's some songs on there that I could do without, but for the most part, just like the first song makes up for it a lot for me because I love this song. Also, I really like "Tell Me When the Whistle Blows."
Okay,
I really love that song.
See, I'm glad that this is happening though. Is I don't want to intentionally disagree, like that's stupid, but I think if we naturally disagree on things, then that's interesting. It's like people that are as alike as you and I can think vastly different about one song. Maybe it'll be an album one day that there's a whole album one of us likes and one of us doesn't like. Who knows?
Exactly.
But it's
Tower
all about
Babel. Like Tower of Babel, really great song.
Hey, listen. I mean, overall, like you said, I am a fan of this album. It made me appreciate Elton John more than I did before.
Yeah, because I just know about it. Bernie, I didn't know about it. I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So it's good to it's good to get the chance to really learn something about Elton. And it's funny. Like even we've only done 3 artists, but just knowing these 3 artists, like when I'm talking about music and listening and looking at albums, I'm already starting to see connections and things. I'm like, oh, Fleetwood Mac did that. Oh, okay, that's connected to that Stevie song having to say, okay, Elton, British thing. Okay, I got you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm really excited to just keep going. I'm really excited for well, we'll get to it, but let's do the 3-on-3. Let's get to the 3-on-3.
Well, yeah, and last thing before we do 3-on-3 is, I love that too. I'm totally on board with you about seeing the landscape of pretty much right now 70s pop.
Yeah.
And just between Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Wonder, Elton John, that's covering
enough.
A lot of ground.
Yeah, that's covering a lot of ground.
And I have a much better just mental picture of the scene back then that I definitely did not before. So I'm happy
and we haven't even
that.
scratched the surface.
Okay, 3-on-3. 3. Want to go first?
Yep. I'm gonna do the one that you probably were gonna say earlier.
Go for it.
In Someone Saved My Life Tonight, there is a sample. Ooh, that wasn't a good ooh, but you get the point, right?
Probably better than mine, honestly.
When I heard that, I was like, oh! I was like, oh! Because that's the first thing you hear on Kanye West's Graduation album. And the song is called Good Morning. Good morning. Ooh.
Yep. And see,
good morning.
We could have a whole podcast on Kanye West, especially with you, man, because you are a Kanye, what do they call it, stan? Kanye stan.
He's the GOAT, bro.
I'm a fan for the most part. Like I said, we could get into that for a lot of different reasons, but
yeah, for sure.
But I must say this is a perfect example of Kanye understanding what the hook of the song was, and then he uses it in his, and it's just
he used it
that
more
really
times
is
than
the
Elton
foundation
did.
of that whole song.
Yeah, he used it more time than Elton did.
Oh, way more. Yeah, he used it more times in the intro. Yeah, man, that's a good one. That's a good way to start out the 3-on-3.
Back at you.
So I'm gonna start with it's not the strongest one, but I thought it was still interesting.
Yep.
The cover art for the album was designed by Alan Aldridge, who he worked with a lot of different artists, including the Beatles and the Who, throughout the 60s and 70s. I think both with album covers and promotional art and things like that.
Right.
But I just found it so funny that he also designed the logo for Hard Rock Cafe.
That actually is that's a good.
What's so funny? What's so funny to me about that is the album art for Captain Fantastic is so intricate, beautiful, colorful, and then you think about the Hard Rock Cafe logo, and it's
he came up with that. He just
but hey, I hope he got paid for that because they're using it all over the world.
I'm sure he got paid for it. Who knows how much he got paid for it? But
probably $20.
Who knows? That's actually a good one. Don't sleep on that one. That was a cool
Thanks.
one.
Appreciate it.
I think that I'm gonna go with. Oh man, I already used mine about the running order. Well, I'll just say this. I think we kind of touched on this, but I'll just restate it here.
Okay.
That this album, Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy, was clearly the mark of an end of an era. This was the last Elton John classic album. This was the last one, which was funny. We talked about the classic period of Stevie. I didn't know there was a classic period for Elton, and it was kind of at the same time, which was crazy.
They overlapped.
Yeah. So, it's interesting that this was the last one. I think it serves it good, though. I think it does its job well, and yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a little bit of a Nashville connection for this next one.
Uh-oh.
So the last album to be recorded at this same studio, Caribou Ranch in Colorado, was the 1985 breakthrough mainstream album Unguarded by Amy Grant.
Oh shoot.
And she was about to fly. She had recorded her previous 3 albums there. And
I didn't know Amy Grant was making music in the 80s, the early 80s.
Yeah. I know.
Jeez.
Yeah. And that her big breakthrough was Unguarded, and that was recorded at Caribou Ranch. Then she was about to fly out of Nashville. Shout out to the hometown.
Shout out to Nashville, baby.
And she was about to fly out and return to the studio to work on more music there. And she got word that the studio was in flames, and the control room got damaged to the point of just couldn't use it anymore, and it literally has never been used ever again.
And I actually know why. I actually know how it burned down.
Okay, go for it.
It was a candle in the wind. The wind just blew it.
I gotta put my ears back in. That was so bad.
The wind caught it. The wind.
For any of you guys who know the two of us, it's amazing that I didn't say that and that Aaron said that. Wow. Oh,
that was a good one. I liked it.
Man, oh man. So anyway, that
you should have saw how inside I was just jumping. I was like, I can't wait till he stops talking.
It took me like half a second to be like, did he just say that? But yeah, so I just
why'd you be something super sad and serious? Well, 3 people died, including the daughter of.
Yeah. So my next fact is how terrible. Yeah. No, but I thought that was interesting. That first of all, Amy Grant was making music in the 80s. Second of all, she recorded multiple albums at Caribou Ranch, and she was the last one to record there.
Yeah.
So interesting.
That's
do you have another one?
I don't have a third one. I have a 2. I have 3. 2 on 3.
2 on 3. It's gonna be different every single time.
I like it.
So I have one more, and this is also kind of related to the studio, Caribou Ranch. The founder, this guy's a character, man. Check this out,
bro. What's your thing? What's your fetish with studios that are crazy?
Huh?
What's your fetish with studios that are crazy?
Bro, but it's not. Yeah, it's really not about the studio this time.
Okay, gotcha.
There's no laughing gas in the studio, but the guy who founded it, James William Guercio.
Nice.
So I'm going to list a few facts about this guy. He produced 11 of Chicago's albums, the band Chicago.
Yeah.
And they were including, I think, one of their most successful albums, which I think was Chicago 10 or Chicago X, as it's kind of labeled. But
that's another band that I know very, very little of. I have one
too.
album of theirs that I listen to. It's great, but I don't know anything about it.
The thing with them is it's almost just daunting. It's like they have 30 albums. It's like, good
Even
grief,
if I listen to 10, it's only a third of their work. It's like, jeez.
Yeah, that's too much. Anyway, so he and Chicago.
You couldn't listen to their whole. If you listen to every album, you couldn't listen to it in a day.
Literally, yeah.
You literally couldn't get.
Maybe not. Probably 2 days, but yeah.
No, unless you got some crazy Stevie double albums, We're not talking about their mixtapes. What about the Chicago mixtapes?
Yeah, what about the vault of Chicago unknown, unreleased music? But so let me get to this because this is ridiculous. So he and the band split up in 1978 because the band realized that somewhere written in all the contracts.
Chicago?
Yeah, Chicago.
Okay.
They realized that this guy, James, was getting 51% of profits. And the remaining 49% was split evenly between the 8 members of Chicago. So,
wait.
So you divide 49 by 8. That's what each of them were getting. And this dude was just producing them, and he got 51%. So that's the first thing. Second thing, he also briefly managed. So we're talking
The music business is so nasty, man.
So nasty, especially back then. You were getting away with all this stuff, but like, he founded a studio. He is producing Chicago. He also briefly managed the Beach Boys in the 70s. So after they were like the Beach Boys in the 60s, but he managed them as well as played bass in their backing band for like a year. And this guy is a character, I'm telling you. In the late 80s, he purchased the CMT channel, the Country Music Television channel, and he was the one who sold it. This guy's
a gangster. I like him.
He was the one who sold it to Ed Gaylord and Westinghouse Broadcasting in the early 90s. And I believe that's the same Gaylord from Gaylord Entertainment Center, which is now Bridgestone Arena. So, man, just a guy with fingerprints all over the map, and not always for the best reasons, but just a fascinating character. And he was the guy who, made the recording of this Captain Fantastic album possible. So
he was made it possible. Gotcha.
Yeah, didn't work on it, but yeah. We could go a few different directions here with the next album.
It's all on you, baby. It's all on you.
That's all on me?
Yeah, because I chose the last one.
Okay. So I'll give us 3 options. I have 3 options.
Give me the background of why you're going to choose these options.
Okay. So the first one is kind of staying in the 70s, in that landscape, with Paul Simon and his album "Still Crazy After All These Years."
Never listened to a Paul Simon at all, so that could be good.
That could be good.
And you like him a lot, right? That's like your.
I do like him. Yeah. I've listened to a couple of his albums.
I thought we were talking about something last week. You were like, I really, really love Paul Simon or somebody.
I mean, I do. I don't know if he's like one of my guys. Like, I don't know everything about him,
Gotcha.
But I mean, we're being nitpicky. Yeah, I definitely love Paul Simon. The reason why the connection between those albums is he won the 1976 Grammy for Album of the Year over Captain Fantastic. So that's really the only connection, but it is staying in the 70s and getting to Paul Simon.
Because we were talking about that last week with Stevie, because he won the year Stevie wasn't.
Yeah, and he was like, "Thank you, Stevie, for not putting out an album this year."
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's 2 others. One would be "Unguarded" by Amy Grant, and that's because of the Caribou Ranch thing. And then the other one, which I know you would want to do, is "Graduation" by Kanye West, because of the sample connection. So 3 very different directions, both stylistically and time-wise.
I don't want to do the Kanye one. I want to do either.
I wish I actually did a spit take right there.
Because I think both of us have listened to that album plenty of times.
Yeah.
Not to say that we can't. That doesn't mean we can't talk about it, but
sure.
I kind of want to. But honestly, either of those other 2, I'm totally on board for.
Okay.
Drum roll, please.
You may be surprised. I'm going to go with "Still Crazy After All These Years" by Paul Simon.
There we go, baby.
Even though I was saying like I don't want to stay in the 70s all the time, I think what this will do is, first of all, it is a classic, but also Paul Simon is connected, just like all these other guys. He's connected to so many different people.
Yeah.
We could end up going back to like Simon and Garfunkel. We could end up moving on to other people that he was associated with in the 70s and 80s and on. Yeah. So I think that gives us a lot of, kind of spider web of options in the future.
Man, so I'm excited. I feel like I get a new present every week to like.
I know.
Let's listen to this album. You know what I mean?
I know.
So it's called "Still Crazy After All These Years."
Still Crazy After All These Years, and there's, I think.
How much have you listened to this album?
Yeah, maybe like 2 or 3 songs
that you know.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm excited because I have no idea. I have no idea what genre. If it's pop, if it's like country, if it's it could be like R&B. It could be Stevie's Adversary. I don't know if he's black or white. I'm just assuming he's white.
Wow.
I don't know.
Really?
I'm telling you, I don't know anything about Paul Simon. Except he has 2 first names.
I'm so glad you said that because
Elton John, Paul Simon. That's the other connect. They both have 2 first names.
Yeah, we started with last names, Fleetwood and Mac. It's like, good grief.
Right.
Are we ever going to get to like That's interesting. I hadn't thought of this. We haven't gotten to a band yet. I mean, the Elton John album was very much a band album, but
Fleetwood Mac is a band.
Well, it's been a long night, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time.
Oh, man.